The next thing you knew, the game was over. And it was like 20 minutes into Georgia's 51-13 win over Kentucky. I think that was the score. I know Kentucky scored 13, and I know Georgia scored way more than that. Why did Georgia play so well at the beginning? Kirby Smart told us last night it was because of the execution. Yeah, exactly. And that's really what it was. They marched down the field against the Cats, drive one, 75 yards. I can't remember how many plays it was. And then, Kentucky it wasn't a three and out, but it wasn't much. Punt. Georgia takes it down the field again. I think it was an 80 something yard drive. And then they follow that up with another extremely long drive. Three drives in a row, back to back to back, of total and utter execution. This game reminded me a lot of the TCU game, but honestly, on offense, it was very much like the Oregon game from last year, where Georgia there were not a lot of big plays. They just were slicing the Ducks up all the way down the field. Third down, no big deal. You know, second and four, stuff like that. It was pristine execution. I think Carson started 17 of 18 or something crazy. I mean, he went for 80%. I remember the two of the seven non-completions. One was a drop in the end zone from Brock Bowers. Apparently that happens. And it's actually it's not the first time that's happened. And then one was this insane attempt to throw the ball, I guess, through three people that Carson Beck decided to do late in the game in the third quarter sometime. It was a pristine performance from an offense that really looked good. The other thing too, I want to just mention this. When Cedric Van Pran goes out, they didn't miss much on that front because they rep other guys. They rep the backups that are going with the ones. Kirby told us 30% of the time. So that was not a big deal. Now, at that moment, that's a big deal because Cedric is a heck of a player. But him going out was not some catastrophic event that Georgia couldn't get through in a single game. Again, I mean, I've talked about this a lot. I know they're not going to say this, but it's pretty evident to me that we've hit the part of Georgia's season where they can start working on stuff further down the line. Now, Kirby never talks like that. He never does, and that's his prerogative. It's his program. He can say whatever he wants to say. But, you do, Vanderbilt and Florida, those games are going to take care of themselves. If you go out and execute half of the way that you did against Vanderbilt, excuse me, against Kentucky, half of the way you did there, you're going to really be in good shape. No turnovers this game. No, well, I misspoke. One turnover from Carson Beck, which resulted in 7 points for Kentucky, by the way. Um, but no turnovers that mattered in that moment. I mean, the drive chart was about as good as you're going to get. And I tell you what else is as good as you're going to get is this furniture. This outdoor furniture is premier stuff from EcoPoly. They are made in the heart of Georgia. You got a 20-year warranty. This is, recycled plastics. It is awesome. We have seen the manufacturing process, and I'm not joking when I say it's awesome. And this, I leave this outside. I do not leave the cushions outside because I don't want to deal with um, rain. And if it were covered, I would probably leave this outside more. But this is an awesome, setup that we've got here at Dog Post. Our kids go nuts running around playing with the beanbag and just being comfortable and making memories, for lack of a better term, lack of a better way of putting it. Make some memories of your own. Take advantage of the 15% offer that we've got. It's right down below. The shipping is free. They're shipping it straight out of Eastman, out of the heart of out of Georgia, the heart of Georgia, out of Dodge County. Make sure you're taking advantage of that. And Georgia needs to take advantage of the rest of this season. Again, the October is always a pivotal moment in college football season. September, you're not winning championships in September. You can lose them. LSU, Clemson, I mean, I guess Notre Dame. Not really, but I guess if you're Georgia, the reason why the Auburn game was always such a critical game was because of its place on the calendar. It was the last conference game. I mean, for usually for history, that was what it was. And then for Auburn, they'd go play Alabama the next week or whenever it was, soon thereafter. For Georgia, October is so pivotal and always has been in many ways. You see, you can really lounge on these things, by the way. I mean, again, I'm a big person. I'm about 6'5", 240. So keep that in mind. Um, Back to the importance of October and the importance of the game with the Gators. It does determine championships. It can knock you out. It can make your season. I mean, in many ways, in 2013, that Florida win was, I mean, that was huge for them. Now, that was a team that beat top 10 LSU, top 10 South Carolina. They closed the season out with a crazy overtime win over Georgia Tech. But that Florida win was such a big deal because every win over Florida is a big deal. And so October now is the time to try to get as many good starts as possible for these dogs. How do you how do you do that? Well, I mean, I don't think there's really any. You just go do it. I mean, that sounds so stupid, but how do you bake a really nice cake? You bake a lot of cakes. In other words, you practice. And honestly, it shouldn't be. I mean, it's hard to do what Georgia did the other day or last night, but it's not impossible, clearly. And what you're gonna want to see from here on out is how many times can you replicate that? How many times can you play better than that? Because they actually could still play better than that. How many times can you get as close as possible to the perfect game? That is the question. How can you do that if you're the dogs? And I mean, to me, the number one way is to continue what they're doing in these practices. Clearly, it's working. There's a lot of teams that I can't tell if they're getting better. I watch Clemson a lot in laws. I don't know if they're getting better. I would argue they're probably not. I think they're probably about the same. Is South Carolina getting better? Again, in laws. Man, I don't know. I don't know. This week will tell us a lot. Are the Gators getting better? Didn't look like it last week. Did not look like. Is Alabama getting better? No question. Alabama's getting better. Georgia's getting better. Ohio State, I'm not sure. So I talked about this a lot, man. It really matters how you practice. That really matters. And it's not dissimilar to everything in life. Just because you really practice well does not necessarily mean you will play well. But I'll tell you what, if you don't practice well, the likelihood of you not playing well is higher. If you practice with a particular edge every single time, it's not going to be hard for you to have an edge in the game because you're just used to having an edge. So how do you start off with good starts? You have good starts to practices. You execute every single time, which means the person who is blocking blocks efficiently and effectively. They don't hold. They're ready. They're not jumping off side. There's not procedural penalties. You know, Carson Beck is where he needs to be mentally. He's got everybody lined up perfectly. No one's moving too fast. We've got a 1 second before we snap it if there's motions, stuff like that. Everybody's set, no procedural stupidity, because 5 yards is a lot. I mean, you think about the difference between 2nd and 5 and 2nd and 10. I mean, it seems like a lot changes there. And, the other thing too with last night was there were a lot of big chunk plays. I feel like now the Dylan Bell run was called back, the Mekhi Muse punt return was called back. Those may have happened because of the holds. I don't know. The throws to Ra Thomas, to Marcus Rosen-Jack Saint, the the throws to Brock Bowers. I mean, These guys are wide open. There are times when these guys are wide open, and that's a problem if you are the other team. And as great as Todd Monken was and continues to be, man, that looked a lot like Todd Monken's offense last night. And it was not Todd Monken, it was Mike Bobo calling it. Man, Mike Bobo knows what he's doing. Like, I mean, there's times to criticize Mike. That's not, that's fine. That's not a problem. How many times can Mike get these guys ready for execution like that? I tweeted something. I think we just tweeted out are we calling it tweet? I mean, just leave Twitter alone. Like, just quit messing with Twitter. Like, you're ruining it, man. Just chill out. But I tweeted something, the video from Georgia, and Ben Jones and David Andrews uh, quote tweeted it, quote xed it, so stupid, and said, Mike Bobo's, speeches, pregame speeches were legendary. Man, these guys, you talking about Muschamp, Schumann, BMAC. I've heard enough of Hartley, Kirby. I want to hear Del McGee, but these guys, they know how to get the mindset right. The players got to come on board all the time too, and every single game's not going to be a ranked showdown at night in Sanford too. So there's all that, but uh, it's not surprising when you turn around and you see. I mean, this was coming. I didn't know when it would happen. Again, I wrote quite a bit that I thought this would be a decisive win for Georgia. It's going to be decisive for a few more. I mean, I would be very surprised. I wouldn't be shocked if Florida and Georgia were, a little bit of a fight. I'd be stunned if Georgia Vandy was. But these are probably going to be decisive wins. Why? Not because I say it, because I see. I mean, you can see what they're doing. The wheels on the bus are moving forward, y'all. And like, this is going to be a thing now where this program is ready to roll in a way that it was not quite ready to roll at the beginning of the season. Why? They didn't play at Auburn. They didn't come back on Carolina. They didn't have the preparation to get ready for this part of the season. They didn't have the experience. And, there were a lot of moving parts. Now, they were much like the way Eco probably puts things together. It wasn't some crazy thing you couldn't do, but it takes skill to do these things. It takes skill to score 51 on a ranked team. It does. And it takes preparation. And it takes, you got to think about it. And you got to make mistakes. And you really do. I remember talking to these guys at Eco Poly about how, the first way they did it, they were really happy with, and they thought that they could be more efficient another way. Well, it found out they weren't, so they kind of went back to the original way, and then they fine tuned that even more. That's the same exact thing Georgia does. That's what we do at Dog Post. Whether y'all pay attention to it or not, I don't know. But I mean, it's no surprise that our audience has gotten exploded. It's not an algorithm; it's what we're doing. So everything, you gotta work on it. And as Jack Waters at Tucker High School would say, if we can just get that much better every single day, the width of a sheet of paper, not the width, but the height of a sheet of paper. If you can do that and stack it up, man, you're really going somewhere. And it seems like these dogs are doing just that.